You're listening to the Jay Bird Watching Podcast, the official podcast of jaysjournal.com and fansided.com, where we discuss all things Toronto Blue Jays baseball. We'll talk about news, rumors, and game recaps. So whether you're a diehard fan or just getting started with the team, this is the podcast for you. Here's your host, Craig Borden, with co-hosts Jason Lyons and me, Ken Alfred. You're listening to the Jay Bird Watching Podcast.
Good evening, Blue Jays fans, and welcome to a fun evening of Jay Bird Watching. Let's make it so I can actually see both of us here and zoom in. Hey, Jason, extreme close-up. Whoa! Perk of only having two of us, we actually get to make sure everybody sees every little pimple and everything on each of our faces this evening.
And I don't have crow's feet or bags under my eyes or any of that stuff.
And that's because you didn't have to worry about the Blue Jays stressing you out over the last 2 weeks.
Right. Right. Now, I will say I'm slightly invested in the Phillies as being, kind of a lifelong Phillies fan and my favorite player ever being Mike Schmidt. But, I know we'll get into this in a bit, but my God, are these ever exciting baseball games?
Yeah. Why don't, before we get to the topic of the hour here, why don't we start with talking about the playoffs? And to that point, I've been a casual watcher, but to that point, I've been very happy and seeing especially watching the Phillies. That has been an amazing series against the Diamondbacks. Lay it out for me, Jason. What you got?
Well, I think the biggest thing is you've got a team who in the Phillies who built themselves to do exactly what they're doing here. When the time is right, they're big money guys, they're big bats, they're coming through, and the chances that they took on, a guy that's considered by lots to be one of the better center fielders in Major League Baseball as a 22-year-old. What's he hitting? $120 or something like that? Nobody seems to care because they can't put anything by him in center. So, I feel like it's interesting baseball to watch because it's a juxtaposition of the two teams. You've got the Diamondbacks that, are so young and they're built along the same premise as the Orioles, but I think have gotten to where they are much quicker than the Orioles ever, dreamed they could possibly. They also proved that you have to have a little bit more than just talent to get to where you're going. And, much to my chagrin, the Dalton Varsho trade is really showing its ugly colors at this point right now. Moreno looks like, the second coming of Gary Carter, and it's and Gurriel is playing great. I don't think they're going to win that series.
Yeah, on that note, I can take the Gurriel part with a grain of salt. He was going to be a free agent at the end of the year, but the fact that it took the two of them to be the actual deciding part of that whole trade, I think that is what's starting to really stick and hit.
The Moreno one bugged me a lot. Yeah, the Moreno one bugged me a lot at the start, and Varsho had a pretty good start to he was good in spring training, and it was starting to look like it might be okay. And I knew that it was just it was just lying under the ice somewhere, and Moreno was going to come out crashing out of it, and we'd be like, damn it. So that's what's happening.
I knew it happened. I was not expecting it to happen this quick.
And on the flip side of things, the Texas series, I really, really, really don't like the Astros. I'm really now finding out that I might dislike the Astros more than I dislike the Yankees, and that's saying a lot.
Especially even the fact that we're Blue Jays fans and we don't like the Rangers as well is even saying another piece to this whole thing. The Battle of Texas, I'm rooting for the Texas Rangers, and I'm just going to say this, that what I have watched, I am being reminded of Jose Bautista watching Adolis Garcia so much. And to the fact that he actually, I kind of feel like in the midst of that arguing the other night, might have actually lit a fire under the Astros' ass to get them back into the series. Well, and maybe it was a little bit of a catalyst to where he is, but to the fact that he has a grand slam yesterday, it's completely...
it's
putting
super
things back
interesting that you would say that. So I actually had a long conversation with a friend of mine who's a baseball guy and loves to talk about this kind of stuff. And, he's a big proponent of the actual parts of baseball, and that's not a part of baseball. What happened there, and this is whether you want to believe the conspiracy or any of the other stuff that stands behind it, Maldonado knew that there was a chance that he would go off, have a ball be thrown at him. They knew that Texas's reliever was flying, and he very rarely pitches 2 innings. So the longer you leave him on the bench, the better things are. And if you watch that inning again, Maldonado took his time, like literally they were down to the half of a second on every pitch clock to try and ice the kicker. And then they see the opportunity. And I mean, if you're going to, and, they kept saying, well, why would we do that with Chu out and Well, because you're the Astros and that
you got to find every little edge you can to win.
Yeah, any borderline cheat you're going to do. And to throw a 97 mile an hour fastball at that guy up and in, I mean, it's not baseball. And I wish, just for a second, that the ump hadn't taken that one step and got in between them, and he could have started wailing on Maldonado, because
it would have looked like
him in the eye.
Because
like
I think it was coming
again. He just won't look at him. He won't look at him. So that he called for it, or he at least called up and in.
Oh, 100%.
And then
there was a complete blatant. That was a Nolan Ryan-esque situation. Yeah. He played for both those teams. That's the irony of the thing. But to that point, I agree with you. There was definitely intent in that whole thing. Adolis Garcia had every right to be very upset. But to that point, that fight actually, even to where it went, lit a fire under the Astros' ass a little bit. And to that point, it has become a very interesting series. Tied tonight, going into the seventh game. It's going to be very interesting to see where that goes tonight, 8:00 Eastern.
But fun baseball, really fun baseball to watch. And because I don't really have a vested interest, I mean, how much fun is it to just watch Schwarber and Harper try and hit every ball as fun? I think they're in a contest at this point right now to see who can hit one farther. Like, there may be like 10 grand on the line for over 450 or like whatever. I don't know. It's amazing though.
So I think the funnier part is, in the midst of watching that last night, the fact that he hits that monster bash, right? It is a full-on crazy. It lands on the frickin', it's like the one he hit for the Cubs back in the day, that they literally encapsulated on top of the scoreboard. Because nobody else is going to hit one right there again. Right. To that point, the next at bat, he literally gets a single out of. It makes Alejandro Kirk's singles look like they went far. It goes like this far in front of home plate, barely, a quarter of a meter.
I can get behind a guy like Kyle Schwarber. Like, what did he have? The same amount of singles that he did home runs this year. Like, I mean, that's a guy you got to love. And he obviously doesn't adhere to too much dietary restriction. He probably has a good time on the weekends. And, he just strikes me as the kind of guy that you would love to play baseball with. And I really like the fact that, there's a lot of people that don't like Bryce Harper. There's a lot of people who don't give Harper any run. A lot of people think he's an asshole, whatever. I've now watched a lot on Bryce Harper, watched a lot on young Bryce Harper. And it's similar to, the reason that people don't like Sidney Crosby, or they don't like Tiger Woods, or they don't like some of these guys. They just don't understand them. They don't understand when someone is so good and so focused that in some cases they can't even deal with their own teammates because they're not trying hard. Do you ever watch the show Shoresy?
I have enough of it to know where you're probably going.
It's a Canadian show based off a show called Letterkenny. It's a hilarious show. If you ever get a chance, watch it. It's so good. But in the second episode of Shoresy, he says it's not that the team doesn't know how to win. It's they don't hate to win. Right? Like Bryce Harper hates to win. He doesn't care about the other parts of it. He just hates to win. And he would be the kind of guy, not unlike Shoresy, that would say we're never going to lose again. And if we do, we're going to fight, or we're going to do something different to make it so that we don't lose. So I like him.
Now, the funny thing is I've seen enough of those highlights on that show even to know where you're going with that whole thing. I do want to wrap up one thing you mentioned on Kyle Schwarber, because in the midst of the everyman kind of commenting that you went on there, I have another comparison for you. It has seeped in Blue Jay and Philadelphia lore. And that is he the current day equivalent of Matt Stairs?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. John Kruk, Matt Stairs. There's been a bunch of them, and they're all very endearing players. And Matt Stairs, that's a super good one. Like,
love Matt Stairs.
That's right on that. That's right on the head.
Yeah. I had a feeling you would be, catching my mantra in that one.
Yeah.
So, but I there is something to that Bryce Harper thing. And it isn't just the fact that he gets in a fight with Jonathan Papelbon. We already know as Blue Jays fans what Jonathan Papelbon is over the last million years. So to that point, when people like that clash, you get interesting pieces. And I think that Josh Donaldson and Bryce Harper would be BFFs in another lifetime if they got to play with each other, because it is 100% the put up or shut up kind of like attitude with both of them. And Bryce Harper very much lives by the David Price principle in that fact too of, oh, you don't like it? Well, play better.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
And I feel like Bo is going that way a little bit. I feel like that's in Bo Bichette. I feel like Bo Bichette really badly wants to win. And, he's now committed to the Jays for a while. And I know that he very seriously wants to win as a Blue Jay. And, a lot of people accuse him of being quiet or coming off as being timid or weird or just, all of those things. But, when you're driven and you're that good at something, when you're not in a single sport, like you can be, Novak Djokovic and you can be Federer and you can be Tiger Woods and you can be a jerk because you can be so hyper-focused on yourself. But when you play a team sport, then you become a Cancer or you become all these other things. Now, let's not mix those two things up though, because there's certainly bad people for teams and bad people for the sport, Papelbon being one of them. Funny you would mention it. But, the guys
teams
that are hyper-focused and the guys that want to win, I think that even the guys like a Trey Turner, who I'm sure is hyper-focused and I'm sure he wants to win too, but he just seems pretty smooth about what he goes about his business. I actually see like the home runs now, like he's in the Dougie, like up and armed, ready to go, like big high fives, big smashes. And you don't see that from him on the field. So I think, again, I think
he's an interesting story for this year.
Who, Turner?
Yeah. The fact that he admitted himself he was pressing to begin the season because he was trying to live up to that giant contract. And I don't know if you know this, but maybe you do. And if not, the Blue Jays fans here get a piece of this whole thing too. The Philadelphia fans started to, instead of booing him, collectively decided to just start cheering the living shit out of Trey Turner and flipped his mental card right around, and next thing you know, we saw Trey Turner be Trey Turner for the Philadelphia Phillies, and he ended up becoming a big part of them down the stretch.
Yeah, it's interesting too because watching the games with my sons and just starting to see some of the different stadiums and stuff like that you don't maybe get to see. I mean, how intimidating is it to go play in Philly? Like those guys are. It's like a room full of rabid dogs. Now, I will say this as well. I mean, they have
I've been there, and thankfully I was there watching I just happened to be in town, but holy crap, I couldn't believe it because they were just playing the freaking Miami Marlins, and this is like 5 years ago when the Miami Marlins weren't relevant, and they were all over the Miami Marlins. So to this point, this will show you how long ago I was there. Vince Velasquez was pitching a near no-hitter that day. I happened to be there. 6 innings and no hit ball. He ended up striking out 15 in that game.
Oof, wow.
It's slightly nuts. That was probably easily the best game that Velasquez has thrown in his career.
Yeah, you were there for it. Yeah, it's
very fun to watch and be wandering around. That was the only time I've ever been to Citizens Bank Ballpark, but that ballpark is beautiful, and you got to respect a place that literally has the home of Philly cheesesteaks in their own ballpark.
Yeah. And I think that what it created is like both of my boys were like, I would love to go watch a game there. And it's, for the casual fan, I know that, like you said, you go to a city and maybe you're there when the baseball season's on and you pop into a park and they can see, how romantic the sport is and how it can change people's lives. And I mean, it's so cool for me to see, for that kind of it. I mean, I hate the fact that, Arizona is selling $9 tickets. It really makes me angry. It really
hurts.
Yeah. And, I also like the fact that the Philadelphia fans were so angry about it. They just decided to start buying tickets. And so no one was going to be sitting in the seats. So, I mean, I like that kind of stuff. It's fun. The Texas stuff, I mean, I can do without it. I don't understand an interstate rivalry like that as much. I mean, they're both not good baseball teams, character wise. So, I mean, let them slug it out and hopefully they beat each other up so bad that whoever wins the national just cakewalks through. But I want them to be good games.
I think you're probably right with that. I really think that's probably where it's going eventually here in the short term, but we'll see.
Yep.
But anyways, let's move on. Let's talk what we actually wanted to talk about this evening. And it's not the fact that it's the 30th anniversary of this, Jason. We'll get to that near the end of the show. I want to talk Cito Gaston. Cito Gaston, as of all Blue Jays fans probably are well aware of at this point, has been elected to the, I forget the committee that the new current era baseball committee has voted to the fact that he is on the ballot for the Baseball Hall of Fame this year. There's some impressive people also on that ballot too that I'm
crazy.
really hoping don't beat him out, because I think honestly that whole ballot is worthy of being in the Hall of Fame. Then the biggest catch on this whole thing is I know that Jim Leland is going to be one of those votes, and I don't know how many they take. That's the one thing I can't find.
Let's just hold on before we. So this is the contemporary baseball era committee nominees. So this is a bunch of baseball minds who get together and they pick some people who aren't in the Hall of Fame and feel like they should be. So these guys still have a shot to get in, I think, on other things. But let's just quickly talk about like the sort of the really impressive ones, like Cito Gaston. It's amazing. 894 wins, 2 World Series championships. Davey Johnson, 1,300 wins as a manager, won a World Series. Jim Leyland, 1,769 wins, 1 championship. And Lou Piniella. You can't forget the Lou Piniella's on that list. 1,835 wins. He did only win 1 world championship, but I think what this does is I think this shows you how hard it is to win multiple world championships. And so
correct
to the point of what we're talking about here with Cito Gaston, I don't know if you saw this clip or not, but Dusty Baker, who's the only person I can stomach on the Astros, Dusty came out and said just recently, the only reason I stayed was for the Cito effect. So they call going back to back as a manager the Cito effect. And I find it so interesting that, as Jays fans and as a collective group of fans, no matter how deep you go or how casual you are, his name, what he did. So, but you don't know the body of work that's behind. Now, he has the least amount of wins, so he's probably not getting in. It's probably not something, even if it's 2 or 3 of them that get picked. But he is the only one out of that group that has multiple World Series championships and the only one that has back-to-backs. So I think...
And he's also got a really weird history tidbit on his side here that he was actually the first African-American manager to win a World Series.
Really?
I was shocked when I heard that too, because I'm like, really? There's no way in hell. There's been always so many good managers over the years, but... that is on document, but he was the first one to win a World Series.
Well, there you
go. So if you're talking about history tidbits and stuff, and the fact that he was an all-star when he played one year, he played and roomed with Hank Aaron. You got it's very much in the fact that Jim Leland's been everywhere and done everything in baseball. Cito Gaston is the same kind of manager, baseball lifer that Jim Leland is.
Yeah.
Just didn't have as many years managing, but the whole thing on that one is flipped on that whole thing is Leland wasn't as much of a player. He didn't play as long as Cito Gaston did.
Do you remember the highlights of Jim Leland smoking in the Dougie? Like his mustache used to be yellow and he'd just be in dart after dart after dart, just sitting there in the dugout. And I know at one point they had to make a move because the players were like, you can't just be doing this here. And he was like, he'd like kind of get around the corner like this and be like, you just see the smoke.
Hey, don't worry about this. Just go off screen just a touch. But to that point, we all know what Cito Gaston did as a Blue Jay and everything. And to that point, there is no anything short of amazing and Hall of Fame worthy as far as especially enshrinement in the Blue Jay Hall of Fame. And I think there is plenty of collective amount of work here for him as a player, manager, and just what he's provided to the game of baseball. There's enough players that go on, just like you hear all the other stories from all those other wonderful gentlemen that you just had listed. The fact that you hear the stories from Jose Bautista this season when he gets inducted to the level of excellence, that it really took Cito Gaston, his team at that time, to really make him click at the plate. And then we saw him turn into the monster of onslaught and offense that is, taking the Blue Jays record books by storm, Jason.
Yeah.
So there's all those little intangibles, and that committee that elected him is looking for those kind of things. For where you look at where the votes have went for the people off of that contemporary board the last few years. This is the same board, I believe, that elected eventually Harold Baines into the Hall of Fame. of all things. So I think they're looking for those extra pieces. They know Jim Leland's going to get in. I don't think they're worried about Jim Leland getting in the Hall of Fame or even correct those kind of things. I don't think they're ever worried about managers and whatnot getting in like that. But I did finally find what the criteria for enshrinement is off of that committee. When they finally go and tabulate the votes for everybody and whoever votes, I'm assuming it's the writers just like it is for the regular Hall of Fame ballot, is the same rules as the Hall of Fame ballot. If you get 75% or higher, it doesn't matter how many people get it. Really? If 5 people get 75% of the votes for some reason, and everybody's unanimously agreeing with their amount of votes that they're allowed to do, here you go.
Well, Twitterverse.
If that's the criteria,
yeah, we should start pumping the Twitterverse then and start
vote Cito.
Vote Cito. Get those writers going. They're easily swayed with cupcakes and things like that.
And beer money in the hotels and
beer money. Yeah.
So 894 career wins. I know he had 837 losses, which gives him barely above 500 for his career. But God, there were some bad years there when he came back.
Oh yeah.
And then even after the, what the should be dynasty, the Blue Jays got ruined by the things there, the baseball strike in 1994. They were heading in the right direction even in 94. They were 500, but they weren't any worse or better than they were at that time of the year. Those 2 years they were in 1992 and 1993. There is nothing saying that the Blue Jays wouldn't have went on a run in 1994 and gotten the Ricky Henderson, the David Cohn, whoever it might have been, Jason, to be able to push them over the hurdle. That is one of the most rude things in sports to me because they really it ruined baseball in Canada. The Expos were one of the best teams in baseball in 94 too. Everybody forgets that.
I also think that you make a really good point. Like, I mean, it was a real shining time for baseball in Canada around there. I mean, the Expos were good, the Jays were good. You were starting to see more players from Canada show up down in the US and play well. And when I was a kid, I don't remember really any Canadians that were of note. You would hit one every now and again, on the broadcast, be like, oh, hey, this guy was born in Peterborough, Ontario, and you'd be like, he was, but it's to me, it's one of those things where, and even now to this day, like, there was a kid on the Twins, that's Canadian. And when they mentioned it, I was like, oh, super awesome. And it perked, like, just everyone in the room perks up. And if you're at a bar, if you're somewhere else, if you're in Canada, you just notice people are like, oh, really? Like really?
Oh, no way.
But,
awesome.
I will say this as an aside. I was down in the US this weekend for a couple of hockey games, just regular league games for my son. So we were down in Seattle for one. We stayed overnight, and then we were in Bellingham. And after years of going down with competitive sports and then my kids and coaching them and going down, usually we don't get a good run of or a good feeling from the American parents. And, it's two totally different schools of thought. It's a lot of down in the States. It's a lot of glass bangers, we call them. And, in Canada, we just know that you don't bang on the glass. They're not fish in an aquarium, that you just don't smash on the glass. And so I will say this, though, this was the most respectful group of American parents, coaches, and everyone that we've dealt with. It was an absolute pleasure. And the Seattle Junior Hockey Association and the Wenatchee Warriors should both be super proud of not only their parents, but the kids. They were unbelievably respectful kids. And it was an awesome, awesome weekend. And my hope is that this is, hockey's a fledgling sport in Seattle. It used to be really popular in Seattle, and then it went away. And now with the Kraken back, it's just exploding. So my hope is that we can continue to see sort of this level of respect. And I've even seen some of it, like even with Bryce Harper hitting that home run and staring into the dugout. I mean, it's a disrespect thing, but it's not. It's just like, I'm looking right at you guys. Like here's the gauntlet. And I didn't even think the backflip from Garcia was all that bad. Like, I mean, in fact, I really liked the first one. I liked the first one. Like, I liked it when he walked it out and spiked the bat. But, I think it speaks to a lot of different parts of sport. And I think what we're starting to see, with guys like Cito and guys like who sort of changed the trajectory of a sport just by, he was such a nice guy and such a cool dude and such a, anytime they talk to him, you're just like, God, how good would it be to have that guy manage you? And look at the guys he turned around. He made some of the best hitters, not only in Jays history, but in Major League Baseball history, better hitters by being the way that he was.
Yeah. Well, and I think that personality shows up in the, how more or less everybody remembers that Bobby Cox got us to the playoffs for the first time. But Cito was the one that really, really cemented us as an actual competitive team
100%
in Major League Baseball. And the fact that, his first year of managing, he turns the team around in an interim role and runs away with a 77-49 record after taking the team. I'm looking at it right in front of me, and it still doesn't make any damn sense to me in 1989 that he does that. Was there some other things that played into that with him getting good players with Pat Gillick? Of course. But the fact that we've already seen it as current day Blue Jays fans, you can give the manager everything you want. But if you can't produce on the field, we get to why we're talking about Cito Gaston in the middle of the playoff race.
Yeah. Well, I think it also speaks to looking at a guy like Aaron Boone, who, strikes me as being a total idiot. He may have had a mediocre playing career, and he may have, the highest perch in the, on the major league manager scale, but he can't produce a winner. He keeps getting thrown out of games. And I think it's the polar
that's what Yankee fans are watching it for now at this point.
I don't know. I think it's the polar opposite of a guy like Cito. And Lou Piniella lost his stack a lot when he was a manager, but I will say this.
In epic fashion, plenty of time.
Everything you read about this whole group of guys, like this group, like Leland and Piniella and Cito and the bunch of guys. Yes, exactly. Totally different. And I like the fact that this year the Jays got another. The Jays have been lucky. They have had pretty classy managers for the last little while, and I'm hoping that the Barrios, I don't know what we're going to call it. The debacle. Yeah, the Barrios debacle or whatever we want to call it. I hope that
right now, according to Blue Jays fans, it's going around the Twitterverse as the decision.
Oh, well, there you go. Okay, the decision. I'll honor X on that one. So, but I feel like John Schneider is setting a precedence for, and it's not a nicer manager. It's just like you said, it's a class act that respects the game. And I don't know how the Astros have turned into the Astros with a guy like Dusty running the helm, but they have. And so it shows you that the players can be, I guess it's probably upper management in that case, because they seem pretty complacent in the trash can incident and everything else. So I don't know. I just love it when somebody loves a sport like that. Yeah.
Too many stupid people on that one. But just even the fact, Cito just, like I said, he breathes Blue Jays blue all day. And if you're talking about, he's our Tommy Lasorda.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, so
every
much.
Blue Jay fan, new, old, indifferent, all love Cito Gaston.
Yep.
And I can only hope the best for him on this ballot. Say enough good things, but to that point, being able to build this team up from like I said, the choke artists that we were known for being at that time. Everybody remembers the drive for 85 and how we were this close.
Yep.
And then just completely buried it the last few. And for you young Blue Jays fans that love this show and listening, I highly recommend going on YouTube. And if you think things are bad currently today with the Toronto Blue Jays, there is a documentary on the drive for 85 and how we tanked.
Yeah.
So,
it's amazing.
So on that note, like I said, Cito brings it around, comes in as an interim manager and gets moves on. The team keeps building in the right direction. Then we had that giant trade in 1990 with Alomar and Carter and cemented the legacy of what was going to come in 91, 92, 93, which were must-see TV in baseball, not just Toronto Blue Jays and Canadian baseball. And that was, I think, the craziest thing as far as what he had contributed to this. he made it fun to watch, period, and put something crazy on that field every day for us all to watch. Yeah. People forget those couple of years. I wasn't kidding the fact that we were around 500 at the All-Star break, Jason. People forget that fact, in especially 93, because you had Olerud doing Olerud, Mahler doing what he did, and then Alomar being the three, headed beast that you had at the top of that lineup, and then don't worry about it. We have White and Carter in that too, and just rounding out the acronym of WAMCO. Yeah. He puts that acronym together on that lineup card every week, and then all is said and done.
He was more than willing as well, and I always respected him about this. He was more than willing to take a chance, and he also had an unwavering faith in his pitchers. He was the first manager that I ever watched let pitchers get into trouble. They'd look in, he'd be like, "Get out of it." And, there's no answers. That's my favorite. Don't look in here. There's no answers in here, right? Yeah. And he had faith in them, and he built those guys into a machine. And I agree with you. Had there not been, the lockout, there might have been two more in there.
It wouldn't have surprised me that we were at least in the conversation.
Oh yeah,
because 94, like I said, they were right there. Things were tipping in the wrong direction a little bit, but that midseason form was coming around. Yep. And next thing you know, stop. And then who knows what, if they played well in 94, what would have been in 95 would have been the question. Because that whole thing, short season, why would you throw a brick of money at everybody in that weird free agency period that became, because it was a lock, the whole strike and everything, and it was nothing going on. Yeah. You were left with what you had. And at that point, it was hoping that Sean Green and all those guys were going to start coming up, and they didn't really pan out in 95. They started coming around in 96 and 97. At that point, unfortunately, I think the window had closed a little bit. We started seeing it perk in the right direction a little bit, but not enough to really get above that hurdle, unfortunately. And that was what led to the first tenure of Cito being slammed shut in 97. And then the resurgence, okay, great. Gibby wasn't getting the job done. Okay, let's go old school. We'll bring back Cito in 2008. That worked out pretty well, honestly, in all things hindsight. Yep. 2009 was a little bit of a step back, but he did start pushing the team back into relevancy. And for those 3 years that he was there, that was taking something and making taking nothing and making something out of it. And
what do they say? It's tough. What do they say? It's tough to make chicken salad out of chicken shit. So
he did a pretty good job at that, to the point where 85 and 77 in 2010, things like that. And put enough together, sometimes you just need that secret sauce to make things right. And to the Blue Jays, for two separate stints, Cito Gaston was that secret ingredient.
I've always felt like there's been a touch of Cito on the team ever since that point. Now, I don't know if it's some things that he employed when he was the manager that they've just managed to have stick around, or it's just sort of the mantra that's coming all the way up from Vancouver through Buffalo right through to the majors. As if you play with class at the end of the day, you're going to feel better about what you've done. And I mean, this is a tough year for the Jays. The expectations were very high. The expectations were high last year, but I don't know what you think about this. I feel like last year, with the sort of the way they played and no taint to it, last year's season, even though it was a loss to Seattle, felt like a bit of a victory. Whereas this year, it
feels like a ding.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think if they had let Schneider manage the way that sort of the Jays managers have been doing it for the last number of years, I don't know if he makes that move. And then maybe we're not.
I can tell you right now, Cito would have told somebody to screw off. Or a certain John Gibbons. I'm even going to go on a limb here that John Farrell even doesn't let those metrics go.
Yeah.
And that's saying a lot, because we all, as Blue Jays fans, know how excited and happy we were to see John Farrell coming out and managing anything. That's besides the point. But to that point, I do think you made a valid point that there is a piece of Cito within this franchise all day, every day. And I'll even give you this one, Jason. We say it on this show a lot. What do you need to do to be well or play well this year? You need to play Cito ball. Worry about winning series. We don't care about the long 50-game winning streaks or anything, which would be great.
Yep.
But it's not bloody likely.
No.
If you can win series, you win baseball playoff spots.
I'm really hopeful.
His mantra was.
Yeah, I know he's already in the wall on the wall of fame at the Jays stadium, but I feel like this would be a really nice, feather in his cap. There's some guys there's some guys that make it into the Hall of Fame that don't have any business being in there. And there's lots that aren't in the Hall of Fame that deserve to be there. And I think that in some cases, when the writers are presented with an opportunity to sort of get one right, I really hope they do. They have not in the past on a bunch of them. And I noticed over the last couple of years, some of the non-player picks and some other different ones have been really solid picks. And it makes the Hall more authentic. It's, like, should Pete Rose be in? Yes, of course he should. I mean, he's a gambler. I mean, watch TV right now. Watch a sporting event right now. How many ads come on during the NFL for gambling? I mean, it is.
So there's that.
Asinine.
And then the fact that Alex Rodriguez has more on, quote, still allowed to be in baseball.
Yeah.
And he literally got banned for a whole year.
Yes. I mean, it's so dumb, but I'm not going to get off on the Pete Rose rant. Let's just go Cito and let's go like Cito would do and stay positive and hope they vote him in.
I really think that this is one that not only Blue Jays fans are aware of, but I do think at the end of the day that Cito Gaston is held with high regard. And this will be something that, if not this year, it will happen. And I just hope that it happens somewhat time soon, because the man ain't getting any younger. I want him to be able to enjoy it.
Yeah.
So,
and that's the other thing
to
too.
that point,
try and make sure that they're.
He looks like he could still manage a team. Last time I saw him,
just
saying.
try and make sure that these guys are alive if you can, because the posthumous putting guys into the Hall of Fame. I mean, it's great for their family and for probably a few people. But if you're given the opportunity to put somebody in while they're still alive, just do it. Just make it happen.
Correct. And to that point, it still breaks my heart, even though Brandy Holiday did a great job for Roy, that it brings tears to my mind even just thinking about it right now. So that's the alternative.
We just watched that whole thing, the E60 on Roy Holiday. What a great piece. If people out there, if you're watching, if you get a chance to watch this thing, we watched the Barry Bonds one, which again, I mean, if you want your mind changed about Barry Bonds, the person, watch that. If you want to stay in 1984 and think Barry Bonds is an asshole, then do that. But if you want to see a real story on a real guy, those two are unbelievable. And the stuff you don't know about Holiday, I mean, I hope that people don't watch it and start to change their mind about what they think about him. But again, this speaks to the Bryce Harpers and the rest of it, like just a guy who is ultra driven to win and ultra driven to perform. And, he didn't hit the accolades he probably hoped for when he was a Blue Jay, but he was still an awesome Blue Jay and a devastating pitcher. Yeah. And, if you get a chance, watch it.
I enjoyed the E60, but I did feel that it went a little too Hollywood documentary, true story crap at the end a little bit. I honestly think that the best documentary that they did on Roy Halladay was the year he pitched the 2 no-hitters in the perfect perfect game. Fox Sports, so FS1, did a documentary about the playoff game where he pitches a no-hitter against the Cincinnati Reds and just makes Joey Votto look like he's never swung a bat before.
Yeah.
But they did that as not talking just about that game. They used that as a frame of talking about him, period, for the whole hour.
Yeah.
And I think that one hit the nail on the head very appropriately. And like I said, it's a horrible story on how it ended, but I think there's enough good and the way that the Halladay family flipped it around here at the end and used his legacy to obviously do more good.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised after watching that they didn't get her more involved in baseball somehow. She speaks unbelievably well, very smart, very caring, very loving woman, and just the whole way that she handled it, and she was a great ambassador for him and for the family and
just
in
for
a very
decency in general. Oh my God.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, I have a strange feeling she's doing and the Holiday family are doing exactly what they would want to be doing at the end of the day and doing good things. I'm kind of glad that they get to fly under the radar amongst everything else that happened a little bit ensuing. So anyways, we do have another Blue Jay moment we would be doing very big disservice to talk about. And that is, like I said, we had this whole thing that happened exactly 30 years ago. Do you want me to see if I can get it?
Yes. Are you kidding me?
Okay, fine. I'll see if I can find it.
So
it's probably all over my Twitter feed.
Let me set the stage here. So 30 years ago, there used to be a hockey rink on Capilano Road called the Courthouse. And so I was playing hockey while that game was going on. And literally, as the bar would erupt during the game, we would stop playing hockey. This is how popular the Jays and that run was. We would stop what we were doing, and guys would get off the ice to run to see what the TV, what the score was on the TV. And I still remember our game ended, and literally we ran into our dressing room. We took our upper gear off. So I had my skates with skate guards on in the bar with my pants and my shin guards, elbow pads still on. And when he hit it, I simultaneously had 2 pitchers of beer dumped over my head like this. And the smell never got out of my hockey gear. And so for years,
I think it's probably okay.
Yeah. For years, I would be like, Joe Carter, just amazing.
And this is where I'm hoping I don't date you at the slight age gap that we have here. I was old enough to, watch this game and everything, but my mom had yelled at me to go to bed.
Love it.
And my dad is a Blue Jay fan as well, as we live in, Yankee country here in Rochester, New York. And this is where, it solidified me as a Blue Jays fan all day, every day at the ripe age of somewhere in the ballpark of 12. So I'm literally up in my bedroom, kind of like stewing, and, they weren't playing it on the radio. I didn't have anything I could get it on at this time, because that's, we don't live in the wonderful tech world that we have now where everything's at your fingertips. So Ricky Henderson gets walked to open the inning, and my dad sneaks around my mom, apparently. Comes and gets me and my brother and goes, something crazy's about to happen. So we're like in the basement hiding, watching the game together. Awesome. Trying not to get in trouble. And I still got to erupt in the euphoria that it was with watching this home run and just soaking it all up. So
I show my kids now, and it has exactly the same effect. That if you ever watch somebody watch it for the first time, every single person reacts the same way. It doesn't matter if you're a Jays fan. It doesn't matter if you know baseball. If you get to watch that at bat and have them hit it, and then that sound, if you want to hear the same sound, listen to what's the second baseman from the Phillies, Stott. He hit a grand slam. He hit a grand slam in the first series, and they have it with just the crowd noise. So they have his walk-up song play, and they're singing it.
Wow.
The crowd's singing it, and he hits the first pitch out, and the crack of the bat is so loud, and then the noise from the crowd is, you can't not. It's like there's nothing even close.
Epic. So as we, move on here, like you said, we got to play it. Yeah. So do you want me to play the audio, or I'm sure we'll get in trouble?
Why not? We can't do it. Oh, look at Mitch Williams.
A laggy.
It was just like it was just, and even the call, and Pat Borders running, he's still got his gear on, like they're, it's just everything about it. And then that numbnuts, you see the numbnuts get tackled from behind out in center field as he's running onto the field, just gets lit by the security guard. Oh, look at it. Beautiful.
Just playing it on loop. Yeah. But to that point, it cannot get it. This is why you watch baseball. 100% why you watch baseball. You hope something like this is going to happen any moment. And I watched something that is called Rewinded. It's a baseball series on YouTube the other day about this home run. And there's some things that were going on around this home run that honestly I had forgotten and didn't notice. And then the celebration that goes on afterwards. And more or less that, first off, apparently in an interview before the game, Joe Carter said something to the tune that he was going to watch football on Sunday. So you better get the parade over with before he watches football.
Yeah.
I'm a busy guy. Because the game was on a Saturday night, like you were mentioning, and all that craziness and everything like that. So there was that. And then the fact that everybody forgets. Do you remember who was actually on deck after Joe Carter?
Oh, I should know this.
It's crazy even they pitched to him.
Was it
like, this is the baseball gods shining on Blue Jays fans.
Who was it? Tony Fernandez?
No, it wasn't an everyday starter. It was Alfredo Griffin.
Oh, I used to love Alfredo Griffin.
I like him too, but at this time he's 38. He's a little past his prime. He's great that he's on his team, but to the fact that everybody forgets that Mitch Williams and the freaking Phillies could have literally pitched around Joe Carter. But
Greg, let's not kid ourselves.
For Alfredo Griffin.
How many times? How many times have you watched in these last series that are? Did you see the home run Harper hit the other night? That's a hanging. Yeah. Like, why do you challenge? Why do you challenge someone like that? Like, he hasn't taken a soft contact swing in 10 years, and you lob him one down Main Street. Hoping he's going to swing over top of it? No, he's going to mash that thing. And Schwarber.
This is why Matt Chapman yells at people. Remember?
Yeah, like Matt Chapman knows you don't throw one down the middle to these guys. They're just going to parking lot.
Don't give him a cookie.
No. So I mean,
on the fact that he walks Henderson to start the inning. He manages to get Devon White out on a pop fly. Okay, great. There's one out. Now you have the perennial best hitter in World Series baseball history in Paul Molitor at the plate. Great. What does Paul Molitor do? Oh, Paul Molitor things. Loop single into the left. Now there's guys on first and second. Inevitably what happens in this next at bat is now Joe Carter's at the plate. The runners move up because Mitch the Wild Thing does wild things and kind of didn't give a crap that Henderson and Molitor just one extra base. It's 90 feet. Not a big deal. Right? Not enough. At the time they were down by 2, correct? That sounds right. Yep. So it needed to be a 3-run home run to win the ball game, hence what eventually turned into form. But now you had a base open. You had Alfredo Griffin on deck circle. You could have gotten a double play to end that. And thank God I'm Jim Fregosi didn't see that.
Well, I also
or didn't care.
Yeah, and I mean that sometimes steps into this equation. Like Mitch Williams was so confident. He was so confident he could get the Jays' best hitters out that, I mean, Joe had to be expecting good pitches. He just wanted to throw it by you. He didn't care.
He looked awful. The pitch before the home run on a slider that went 50 feet down and out. And some interviews you'll see in the World Series videos and stuff like that of Paul Molitor talking about this whole thing as he was on second base and watches this whole thing unfold from the perfect view, right? He says on record, he throws him that slider again. He's done.
Yeah.
And there it is. Bang.
Yeah. I mean, it's like Craig Kimbrell did it the other night. Yeah. And it's funny because when he said touch 'em all, Joe, I mean, the main reason is because he almost missed first base. But that being said,
and apparently he'd done it earlier that year.
Yeah, and it's funny that the commentator would think that was being broadcast out loud into the stadium, like, "Hey Joe, don't forget to touch all the bases." But the poetic part of it, watching him hop down to first base and then sort of look back, like, "Oh geez, I missed it," and and then to have that come naturally out of a broadcaster's mouth, and I mean, it's iconic. You can just play the audio. Yeah, you can just play the audio from that, and Toronto Blue Jays fans, just baseball fans, know exactly.
You can visualize it without being there, which is what the market
terrible banners out
actually is.
Yeah, the terrible banners out in the field, the red, white, and blue banners, and that really awful World Series logo behind home plate, and I mean, it looks aesthetically, it looks terrible. But and it's really not even.
The best thing is you hear the touch 'em all part. You're never going to hit a home run bigger in your life.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, there's only one person in Major League Baseball that can say that they had a bigger home run, and it's because it's literally equal. And that is Bill Mazeroski of the Pittsburgh Pirates beating the New York Yankees. And was it the 53 World Series, something like that?
Yeah.
So literally aptly named the shot heard around the world.
Yeah.
I'm remembering.
The Kirk Gibson one's got to be up there too, though. The one where he limps out.
But there's only one other walk-off home run to seal a series, and that is Maz for the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Yeah.
I'm not knocking the fact that there aren't big home runs in baseball history. But who can say that? There's only two people, and one of them, and they're thankfully, I think Maz is still around too. But they're literally two baseball players in all of baseball history that could say that they walked off a World Series home run.
Yeah.
And that's the thing you dream of as a kid, even just playing stickball down the street. What did you do today? I hit a World Series winning home run. We walked it off. Because there's plenty of people that could say they had a World Series home run. I look at how many Blue Jays that were key once. Ed Sprague had a game-winning home run in 1992. There's plenty of awesome home runs in Blue Jays history. Yeah. One of my favorites was the one that made us relevant for the first time ever. It was in 92 with Roberto Alomar and the famous, I got a bobblehead in the background. So, and then obviously that gets topped out by a few big home runs in the World Series that year too. So, and then obviously current day Blue Jays fans, in my opinion, try to compare the bat flip to Joe Carter. I'm not knocking the bat flip at all. Bat flip for Jose Bautista is in the top 10, top 25 home runs in baseball history, in my opinion.
Easy.
But it didn't walk off a World Series.
No, it didn't. And I mean, I've even watched a thing on it that suggests maybe the Encarnacion home run was more influential than the bat flip. And same with Russell Martin had a really big one, didn't he? Didn't he have a home run, like a really massive home run?
That same series in 2015 against the Rangers, Troy Tulowitzki also had a giant home run.
Tulowitzki, yeah. I think
that turned us around in Texas.
Yeah. I think that what the touch 'em all Joe home run is it's an undeniable piece of history that group owns, and there is no ifs, ands, or buts. Like, did Joe Carter crush the baseball? Yes. Did all that stuff happen? Yes, it absolutely did. And
100%.
I mean, when people ask me why I like baseball so much, and I think it comes down to this, and I was mentioning this on the weekend, and my wife kind of gave me a funny eye about it, but I said out loud, I'm like, I love hockey, but hockey's got no romance, and baseball is all romance. I mean, even in a stinker in the middle of August, you can find something romantic. So, a beautiful.
How do you not get romantic about baseball?
Yeah, and it's something about it where you can have good plays in other sports, and you can have, but there's just something about baseball that it's classic, and moments can happen at any time, and you expect them now. Like watching the series right now, like no lead is safe right now.
Nothing.
And so like the Phillies hit a 3-run homer, and the next inning the Diamondbacks score 4, and you're like how? You've got the best pitcher on your team out there. Stop doing that.
It's like the baseball gods are just messing with us at this point with those.
I think they're just having fun, the baseball gods, right now. I think they're either drinking too much or not drinking enough, and so that's upsetting the paths. But
I don't know why this horrible bit popped into my head from where you were going there. You ever seen Robin Williams talk about how golf was invented?
Love it. It's one of my favorite things. It's one of my favorite, not just comedy pieces. It's one of my favorite monologues of any kind anywhere. It is.
Oh, you
so
mean
hilarious.
you have a stick like croquet? Fuck croquet. I'm gonna make it a weirder, screwed up looking stick.
Just and it
Drunken
rings
assholes
true
think
for
about
me
it.
because one of my boys has really taken to golf, and as you probably know, the weather doesn't permit us to play
Thinking of
golf
my
all
daughter.
year round here in Vancouver. So I have a driving net for him out back, and he's got it set so he can kind of stay dry when it's pouring rain. We've got like a putting thing down here and a little thing he can chip on down here. And he came up last night and he was very upset. I was like, dude, what's wrong? And he's 12. So really stable mentally and all that. So I'm like, dude, what's
related
wrong?
to you? It can only be so normal.
And he's like, Dad, golf is hard. And I'm like, oh yeah, golf is ridiculously hard, dude. Like, I mean, you're only experiencing not being able to chip a ball 10 feet into a bucket here. Like, it's
Imagine when you have the wind and a freaking random cougar runs out of the bushes. Oh God. That's fun though. That's why we play games.
Yeah,
period.
It is.
And to your point, I'll go back to the fact that there's a reason there's so many good baseball movies.
Yep.
There's so many things that get, like you said, romantic about it. It's not just a stupid slapstick thing. Even when you get to the movies like Sandlot, there is tons of heart in it, and it's around the game that we love.
Yep.
And I'm sorry to say, maybe it's the only thing I can think of. The best movie I can think of hockey-wise is Slap Shots. And that's because I haven't gotten the foil ready.
Yeah, hockey's an interesting one. And I find football's like, I mean, on whole, don't you find it interesting that Americans on whole, they love sports? I mean, they love sports. Yep. And there's been some good football movies. Like, there was a run there where, like, sort of after Rudy, there was Remember the Titans, and there was, Any Given Sunday, and there was a few that sort of popped in there. And for baseball, I mean, we've got some good, like Major League is an excellent movie. Field of Dreams is a good movie. If you watch it again, it's not a great movie. Bull Durham is a good movie.
Good. The
Natural is a good movie. Moneyball, for my dollar, is one of the best ones, just because of the Hatterberg story and that it's real. It's the whole thing is real, and it's just like, oh, you just.
And then you have even the Beeline ones in that whole thing, and maybe this is something else we got to do in Resurgence. We did a countdown on this show probably about 5 years ago. I put a bunch of baseball movie rankings into a blender and had it spit out a list that we all could bitch and confirm on.
Yeah.
But one that I was surprised that actually just missed the cut was another Kevin Costner one in For Love of the Game.
Yes, which is a good movie.
And it's a great movie. It's just, like I said, it's one of those ones that doesn't get missed. Yep.
Yeah. I watched it on a plane because none of the other movies would work. And then I discovered that it was a good movie. But yeah, hockey's got nothing.
John C. Reilly being the catcher in that was perfect.
I know, so good. Yeah, I mean, Slapshot's a classic. I mean, it's a strange movie. Like, I mean, it's the writing in it's weird, and there's like some real deep, weird stuff going on. Youngblood is a terrible movie. One of the worst. Like, to have guys having stick fights in hockey, whoever made that movie should be taken out onto the ice with no gear on, and guys should be able to shoot pucks at them. So then what have you got? Miracle. That's a great movie. And I'm not a rah-rah, American, but that is a great movie.
Correct. Then you get into like weird things like Mystery Alaska, or you God forbid, you got to go all the way to get something with a ton of heart, like the Mighty Ducks or something.
Yeah.
Which I love those movies. But
my point of this was, don't you feel like it's almost time for a few more good, sports movies? Like, it's been a while.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Anybody's done one. And, if anybody wants to look me up, I'd love to do a movie about a little league team. I would love to do a movie about.
We're happy to be a broadcast group for the little team.
The voice
we
of
do
the
a play-by-play, Jason. I think it'd work out pretty well.
I know. I'd be good at color.
And answer the booth live, Jason.
Yeah, my favorite is when we're watching a sport, my wife, my kids, or anything. Something will happen and I will say it, and literally the second after it comes out of my mouth, whoever's doing color says the exact same thing, and they just look at me and I'm like, I know.
My wife does the same thing. I'm like, I know I'm not getting paid for the right job. Or at least the one that I would 100% be in love with all day, every day, no matter what kind of good or bad or ugly was going on with. Not that I don't like my job. There's a difference between the dream job and baseball, and then there's the difference between the job I actually get to do for, affording all these dumb toys on my wall.
Yes.
So good at both. Can't get paid for the other one. Hence the reason we make about a beer's worth of money here every month on Jaybird Watching.
Hey-o.
So, but anyway, Jason, is there anything you'd like to, quickly wrap up here as we, get ready to wander off here into the, more off-season fun?
Keep watching. Well, I think, like Craig and I said, we might try, and if any of these series end, I think maybe, if Craig sends me a note from Buffalo and we pop on and just do a quick review of what we've seen. I'm game for that, and like we said, I saw people popping in and popping out. I've invited a whole bunch of new people to start watching this podcast. A lot of them are hockey families. Guys, send in comments. If there's stuff you guys or the kids that listen to it want to talk about, let me know. It's all cool. It's all good. It's all fun. That's why we're here.
And then here's the fun with the off-season period, Jason. People, I need to get the clue that I'm actually open to having fans on this show. Mm-hmm. I want to have fun conversations with fun Blue Jays fans. Yep. That's the reason we had our Looney Hot Dog buddies on here a few weeks ago, and many and all the other goofballs we've had on this show, and present company included. We are the barroom chat for Blue Jays fans, and I don't care who we invite into that conversation. Yep. You are all welcome to talk with us here, whether it's through the chat or if you would like to come on the show, DM us on X/Twitter/ whatever hell Elon's calling it this week.
and don't be intimidated. Don't be intimidated, guys. I know that some of the people I've talked to, my friends included, who have said, just come on. They're like, I can't talk for an hour, not like you can. I mean, granted,
you'd be surprised what we get you and talking to on this show.
I very rarely shut up, but I mean, I've had, I had my buddy Craig on, and he had trouble shutting up.
So he had a great time.
It's amazing how
we're going to have
get talking.
Yep. So we're going to have plenty more of those experiences coming on. I am in the midst of organizing a very fun Blue Jays trivia kind of like tournament with a bunch of other Blue Jays writers and podcasters. I have at least 3 teams signed up and committed to that right now. I am trying to at least make it 6 so we can have a little bit of a bracket to that point. If you are interested and you have a buddy that would like to join said Guess That Blue Jay trivia kind of contest that we're going to be doing.
I need help. I'm going to need a ringer on my team.
So the idea is that the way we played this, Jason, so these are the rules as far as I'll lay them out here for everybody. And each episode / whatever the hell contest bracket piece we're going to do. Let's say you and I are playing each other right now. I'm going to have 3 Blue Jays with 3 clues lined up for you to try and answer. If you get it on the first clue, 3 points. You get it on the second clue, 2 points. Last clue, sorry, you only get 1. And if you didn't get anything at the end of that time, and mind you, there is no time constraint on any of that too. So it's literally at the ballpark and me just busting your balls from the hosting seat going, hey, have you got anything yet? Got a guess?
And we're going to
poke fun at that.
Yeah. I'm stoked.
It's going to be a fun time. Like I said, I'm building up the roster, but Blue Jays fans, if you're listening to the show and you would like to partake, you just need to have a partner. So 2 versus 2 versus 2 is the whole plan for the whole thing. So it's going to be every week. There'll be 2 people over each show until we form up the bracket, and we're going to have some fun while we're doing it. And we're going to make it interesting. Goofballs are collect goofballs. So like I said, I got some other podcasts and other Jays Journal writers that are going to join us on those shows, and we will be advertising who's going to be on what show once we get the schedule figured out here. Good deal.
All right,
Blue Jays fans. Tune in next week. We're going to have something more fun for us all to chit-chat about next week. Maybe it'll be World Series fun because it kind of looks like everything is going to be wrapped up tonight, I think, Jason.
Yeah.
So we'll have some stuff to talk about on who made it and all that kind of good stuff. And maybe we'll do a little more reminiscing about World Series in general. But to that point, Blue Jays fans, make sure you tune in every week. We might switch eventually after all these shenanigans if the Blue Jays season gets too light to every other week, but that will be determined at a future date. So make sure you tune in every Monday evening at 7 o'clock Eastern. I know we were a little early this evening, but thank you all for tuning in. I did see plenty of you coming in and going. And if you missed our live shows where you didn't get a chance to comment because you're a little late or whatever it might be, make sure you listen on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasting pleasures from. And on that note, Jason, I got a 1, a 2, a 3. Woo! Let's go, Blue Jays.
Thank you for listening to the Jay Bird Watching Podcast. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch at BirdwatchingGC and our YouTube channel. If you want to support the show and get extra content, please consider joining to our Patreon at patreon.com/birdwatchinggc. Go Jays, go.